Thank you to everyone who've tuned in this morning. Super excited about bringing this to you guys. It's what has been a really, really busy start to 2024. So next slide, Daz, please. So I guess the last month or so of announcements has all been about our mining restart at Cloncurry. Our board has committed to restart mining. We've got a 4.6-year mine life, produces decent cash on what is already all permitted, ready to roll, and with a small payback of 6 months. We look forward over the next couple of months to provide our investors, particularly on Cloncurry, further upgrades to our mine life and further upgrades to our resources at Cloncurry. We've drilled since June last year, we've drilled over 18,000 metres of diamond and RC drilling at our Cloncurry project. A vast majority of that actually at Great Australia. That has not yet been included in our reserves for Cloncurry. So we're looking forward to advising our investors in further resource and reserve upgrades, which means further extension of mine life at Cloncurry. We also, at Mount Oxide, since acquiring Mount Oxide, we've drilled over 4,000 metres of diamond drilling. That was since June last year. We like to think we've delivered and started to show some of the potential at Mount Oxide by our initial hole hitting 65.5 metres at 4.95% copper in an area where there was only thought to be low grade copper mineralisation, and that has a true width of 48 metres. We then backed that hole up with further subsequent holes of multiple large zones of significant mineralisation, one being 70 metres with a true width of approximately 55 metres at 1.9% copper. In all, we think Mount Oxide and Vero is something special. It was held by the previous company for over 40 years previously before we got it. During that time, the company spent over $50 million on the project, and particularly only Vero. And hopefully today we can give our investors an insight of what we think are further exciting, the exciting potential, exploration potential to grow this thing to what is already a special project, but something really significant and worth focusing on in the years to come. With that, like I said today, I've also brought along Peter Brown, who's busy restarting our mining at Cloncurry. He's our Chief Operating Officer. Pete has built mines in Cloncurry, ran mines in Cloncurry. He knows the projects, he knows how to deliver, and we're very lucky to have him. So Pete's here to answer any questions you guys may have, but also Daryl Nunn is our Chief Geologist. Daryl has been with us since day dot. He's a very, very smart geologist, and he's going to walk you through our exploration strategy for this coming year. Thanks, Daryl.
All right. So from an exploration perspective, TNC has a large land package within the Mount Isa Inlier where we know there are world-class copper deposits. That 850 square kilometres is really focused along some of the major structural corridors that host the significant mineral systems within both the Eastern Fold Belt and the Western Fold Belt. Down in and around Cloncurry, we're looking at the Cloncurry Fault and the Mount Margaret Fault coming down from Ernest Henry. This is a cluster here of significant mineral occurrences that are a focus for the Cloncurry operations, but also we see it as an exploration potential here to deliver additional transformational discoveries for TNC. The other focus area for us is on the Mount Gordon Fault zone up through here, which hosts obviously the Vero deposit, but also Capricorn copper. So we're really focused in on two really prospective structural corridors within the Mount Isa inlier. We think there's in these districts that there's significant potential for large-scale copper discoveries. What we're going to do in 2024 is we're going to build on what we did in 2023. So we had success at Mount Oxide, where we could show that there was untested and significant mineralization that we could increase the resource base. And we were able to Cloncurry to show that there are down dip potential, but also we were able to extend both the footprint of the GAM system with some IP, and we're also able to extend the Wallace North system to depth. So what are we doing? We're targeting, discoveries within both of those areas, and we're targeting sediment-hosted copper, silver, cobalt systems like Mount Isa copper, iron oxide copper gold systems like Ernest Henry, and iron sulfide copper gold systems like Eloise. But the way we're going about this is we're staging our exploration. We're using leading edge integrated analysis. We're going to apply innovative and novel geophysical methods to define the targets and prioritize those so that we can put the dollars in the ground in the best spots where we have the chance of developing a large scale transformative discovery. The idea behind this staged approach is that we will be able to undertake an aggressive drill program later in the field season into high quality targets with well-designed drill holes. This just shows the pipeline of projects that are available for exploration in TNC's portfolio. There's a large number of those. We're looking at moving each one of these subsets through to current life of mine. I'm going to focus in now on the Mount Oxide project and talk about what the exploration program there looks like for 2024 and some of the work that we've been doing. Mount Oxide is about 150 kilometres north of Mount Isa. It's hosted on that regional crustal scale structure called the Mount Gordon Fault Zone, which is a north-south structure. It also hosts the Capricorn copper system, which is about 25 kilometres to the south. Vero sits on a splay structure off that Mount Gordon Fault called the Dorman Fault, and that's the main controlling structure for the Vero deposit. We can see the Vero resource footprint here is only on a small section of that Dorman Fault. What we've been able to assess and build through mapping and geochemical analysis and just getting boots on the ground work, we've been able to identify that this is a 10-kilometre long trend of outcropping indications of copper mineralizations in gossans and silicified breccias. So it's a phenomenal strike length and potential there to be exploring in. And as Marty alluded to initially here, Pirelli has spent a large and a vast amount of money on the Vero resource footprint. All the drilling was focused within this area, and there are only 2 drill holes at this Mount Gordon prospect to the north that have been drilled back in the 1980s. So this is an undrilled, tested, underexplored belt of potential copper mineralization that sits, within the head frame of a pretty special deposit in its own right. Just to look at, what we're doing is we're taking a mineral systems analysis approach to exploration. And what that means is we look at analogues and we look at patterns in those analogues and use that to explore further in the deposits that we're looking at. Now, Capricorn copper is a very good analogue for the Vero system. It's a high-grade copper breccia system hosted within structures. It has the same mineralization zonation patterns. It has the same alteration patterns and is hosted in the same rocks. It's absolutely a stunning example of an analog. What we see, just have a look at this, is the key things for me from this long section here from Capricorn copper is that the system is developed over around about a 3-kilometre strike length. There are intermittent high-grade shoots developed along those structural trends. And in some cases, there's blind mineralization. So not outcropping at surface, it's at depth along that structural corridor. The other important point to make here is the mineralization has significant depth extents, and they keep extending that. At the moment, the Mammoth deposit is around about 1.2 kilometres below surface. On the other hand, if we just have a look at Vero is around about 1 kilometre in strike length, the resource as defined today, and is drilled to about 400 metres below surface. We can see the high-grade shoot developed in the Vero deposit here, but it's open. So we think there's potential for remakes of the Vero deposit at depth within that structural corridor, that dormant fault structure. But also, as I said, alluded to before, we've got significant strike length to test or to analyze and develop drill targets on. So that's over 10 kilometres versus the 3 kilometres at Capricorn Copper. Now, obviously, this is an analogue. We still have a lot of work to do to build anything quite like the Capricorn Copper mineral resource, but we think there's great exploration potential to do that. If we just go into our exploration program and what we've been doing and where we think the pathway to discovery at Mount Oxide, we've been taking a systematic prospectivity analysis of that trend. That's been desktop based. We've also been out there mapping. We've rock chip sampled. We're leveraging geophysics program and satellite imagery and all those things to build a unique integrated data set that we can use for our targeting. What I'd like to focus in on today is just 3 of these really high priority targets that we've generated and talk to you a little bit about why they are so special. This is the Aquila and Mount Gordon area. It's around about 4.5 kilometres northeast of Vero, up at the intersection of the Dorman Fault and the Mount Gordon structure. So in a really good structural setting. It's about a 1.5 kilometre long trend of outcropping fault breccias, hematitic zones, gossans with copper mineralization in it. And these zones are up to 10 metres wide and are undrill tested. We've got prospecting pits in there that have returned up to 4.8% copper in historic rock chips. At the northern end of this trend, we see the Mount Gordon historic mine. This was a small underground 40-metre deep shaft. It was extracted some high-grade copper during the 1900s. There was 2 drill holes completed at Mount Gordon in the 1980s. There was a narrow intercept of 0.9 metres at 2.42% copper. However, we've been to the core library and reviewed the logging, and there is significant large-scale alteration within those drill holes that indicate that we're on the periphery of a system. So what are we going to do in 2024? We're going to get some mapping, extend it out into the Mount Gordon zone. We've got to do some systematic rock chip sampling to find those real hot spots within this, substantially, continuous long trend of breccias and surface expressions of mineralization that look very akin to Vero. And then we need to get in there and we've got to get some airborne geophysics, and that's planned for, or ground geophysics to help us target at depth within this system. If we move a little bit further back towards Vero along that Dorman Fault, we've identified a prospect called Ivana North. It's about 2.5 kilometres north or northeast of Vero, so really close to the Vero deposit. It consists of a number of fault breccias, but also hematitic gossamer zones with copper in rock chips. These zones are substantial, up to 15 metres wide and continuous for 450 metres. There's been no systematic rock chip sampling, no drilling, nothing here that can, is something to immediately build target on. So what we're going to do is get in here and we're going to sample this. We're going to do some additional soil sampling and then again apply the ground and airborne geophysical methods in this area to specifically target at depth. If we actually go a little bit further south along that 10-kilometre long trend, south of the Vero resource, we've identified an area that we call the Camp Gossens. The Camp Gossens are about 1.1 kilometres southeast of Vero. It's a structurally controlled zone with numerous gossenous outcrops that form within an 80-metre, a 250-metre wide zone. They are up to 80 metres long and 10 metres wide. So we've got multiple stacked gossens here. We've been out there and we've got and done about 178 rock chip samples along this trend where we're seeing outcropping copper oxides. We're seeing, hematitic breccias that are really similar to what we would see at surface and have been seen at documented at surface at, say, Capricorn copper. So excellent surface expressions of mineralization just down the road from the Vero resource. Never drill tested, no rock chip sampling historically, right next to the Mount Oxide core shed and camp. So we've got geophysics program developed to be over this area to help us define the targets at depth, and we'll have those rock chip results coming in soon that will hopefully be able to highlight the key areas that we need to drill test. We'll just move on to the Cloncurry copper project. Marty, if you want to just take it a little bit here.
Yeah. At Cloncurry, it's more a focus on increasing mine life. So we've done a lot of work. Sorry, I'll restart. Cloncurry exploration today, it's been all about justifying and validating and verifying our mine life, of which we believe is well in excess of 8 years. That news to the investors, to our stakeholders of our company, is ongoing now. We're switching our exploration strategy this year is a combination of switching from that ethos towards more defining some of the large IOCG systems that we have in our project portfolio. The first one of which is the Greater Australian and the one that we're most excited about. Daz, do you mind leading that off, please, mate?
No problem. So, as Marty alluded to here, we're really looking at, getting things into that development pipeline as quickly as possible. Really focus the first, this Cloncurry section of exploration around the things that are on currently granted MLs. And then we'll touch a little bit on the other systems that we have done some work on and starting to see some really interesting systems here that need further work. So if we were to go to Great Australia, what we've done is we've done new geophysics, and that's identified 8 high priority drill ready targets. And that's right in the Cloncurry operations hub, right next to crushers and all the infrastructure that goes along with that. The Wallace North, we've got 3 new targets, and that's just to the north or south of the current pit that is going to be, is the startup mining pit for the operations. And then at Mount Norma, we've got a 2-kilometre long trend of prospective ironstones that haven't been drill tested, but we've also got open mineralization in the Mount Norma resource at depth. This is a fairly complex slide, so I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk through it, but the green outlines here are the 0.3 cutoff of the various deposits within the Great Australian complex. We have the Great Australia, it's about 4.7 million tonnes, Orford Shear about 1 million tonnes, and Taipan about 5.1 million tonnes here. These deposits are controlled by a major northeast structure called the Orford Shear or the Gam Orford Shear Fault. And this structure is a large-scale structure that is penetrative throughout the project area. What we see in the coloured bars here are our IP anomalies, and this is the first time that IP has been ever done throughout the area between Taipan and GAM. And we chose IP because we looked at the mineral system, and the style of mineralization that we saw was more conducive to IP than what the previous explorers had done, which is a lot of EM. So,
yeah, Daz, and I just to butt in there, you know, and a lot of the feedback we're getting is, oh, look, Great Australia's been around for over 100 years, and it is. It's was one of the first copper mines in Queensland. You know, surely TNC are just picking the bones or whatever's left over there. We like to call it internally the Fosterville effect. You know, the Fosterville gold mine was one of the, just like Great Australia, until new age geophys and exploration techniques were deployed. Next slide, Daz, if you wouldn't mind, what you see, what we've been able to find is this is actually not just 2 or 3 isolated systems of Taipan, Great Australia, and Orphanshire. It is actually one very large IOCG system. And Daryl, do you mind just explaining what this is about?
Yeah. So this is the IP cross section from the work that TNC did. The key things here are we're seeing the coincidence of the IP anomaly with no mineralization at Taipan, and then 2 other high order IP chargeability anomalies that are at plus 40 millivolts per volt. So that's really, really quite chargeable. But the key target for us here is target D, and it's associated with the intersection of the Copper Mine Creek North-South fault and the Orphan Shear North-East fault. Key to this is it's open at depth, and what we can see is that it looks like the structural feeder for the whole system, and it's being upflow and outflow to, you know, Taipan, you know, target B, and even this seems to indicate that it's outflowing to GAM. And our deeper drilling at GAM earlier in 2023 indicated the system is still continuing to depth. So we think that this is that feeder. It's the main target here, and is the whole core to the IOCG system, which is over 2 kilometers long.
Thanks, Daz.
If we were to look at Wallace, we've obviously been doing the reserve work around the Wallace North resource. We've been doing drilling to depth during 2023 and doing the advanced grade control. What we've done in an exploration sense at Wallace is shown that it is continuing to depth, but we've also brought in some historic work. So these are EM conductivity plates here in yellow, and we ran a trial IP line across that. What we came up with is some really strong targets that coincident with those EM plates. We were able to show that there are parallel conductors at 150 meters north of the resource, and really high order chargeable anomalies to the south of the resource that are untested. We think here the key thing to do is to extend that EM work, because it's working and showing new plates, and then drill test those later in the calendar year. At Mount Norma, we've got an extensive zone of ironstones. It's over 2 kilometers long, and within that we have just a small part of that is host to the Mount Norma resource. That resource is open down depth. There are really high grade numbers here that are open. We think that they're a valid target to extend our sulfide resource at depth, but we can see that this trend is untested, unmapped. We need to get in there, and we can do some really good geology on this. We've got some innovative geophysics, high resolution drone geophysics that we're looking at planning over this to understand the structural controls and better target drill holes in the near future. Just to touch on the other 3 prospects that we're highlighting today. At the Weinberg system, it's a small, initially a gold resource. What we're looking at is there is underexplored copper potential there. We see that district to be similar to Wallace North, where Wallace South is the gold resource, but Wallace North is the copper resource. So we think there's prospectivity for copper in parts of the Weinberg tenure package. At Salisbury, we've got a large footprint mineral system. It's sitting at the structural intersection, structural corridor that hosts Ernest Henry. There's there's a historic JORC resource there. It's an exciting mineral system with big breccia systems, lots of magnetite alteration, and we think it's got some real hallmarks of bigger system size. At Notlaw, we're looking at a 2 kilometre long trend of copper in shallow drilling. It's only 9 kilometres from the Cloncurry operations hub. There's a small prospect there that's been relatively well drilled, but the rest of that 2 kilometre long trend remains untested at depth. We think there's high potential there to develop something that is more substantial. If we just to summarise up a little bit here on what we've been talking about, Marty and Peter have alluded to the mineral resources and reserves. We've been doing that resource infill and extension. So at Mount Oxide, we've been able to intersect, significant widths of high-grade mineralisation that are in areas that weren't previously expected to be mineralisation. At Wallace North, we were able to drill new intercepts down dip and show that the system is extending at depth. At Great Australia in 2023, we drilled deeper in the system than anyone had drilled before, and still shows that system is trending down and has potential to join up with other parts of the system. The IP survey at the Greater Australian target has some really spectacular results there. Some really high grade, high order chargeability anomalies at great structural intersection that we really need to get in and drill test this year. IP and EM indicate parallel structures to the Wallace North system, but also that it continues to depth. And our desktop analysis is starting to identify signatures at Weinberg and Notlaw of significant mineral systems. Our prospectivity analysis at Mount Oxide has identified 4 high priority targets on a 10 kilometre long trend of the dormant fault. This is untested mineralisation. It's got surface copper at surface in rock chips. We're doing the systematic work here to map, sample, and build a pipeline of high priority targets and drill hole designs for testing these systems during the next year.
Thanks, Daz. Throw it back to Benny for any questions.
Great, thanks guys for that presentation. Very exciting exploration program ahead in 2024, which looks set to build on some of the great results of 2020-23 and also some of the other activities which the company is working on currently. So now on to the Q&A, but firstly a reminder, if you do have a question, now is your opportunity to ask the question, and you can do so by entering that in the Q&A panel within Zoom. And we do have a couple of questions so far, so I'll get moving on to those. The first one is, with such an extensive exploration program planned in 2024, in addition to some of the other activities which the company is working towards, how do you intend to manage everything outlined in terms of funding, timing, and also focus?
Great. I might hand that over to Peter. Pete, because Pete's our Chief Operating Officer, and he and I work with that hand in hand, glove in hand, and delivering the company's strategy.
So thanks, everyone. The company's recently raised significant funds towards its ongoing efforts in both Mount Oxide and across Cloncurry. We see them as 2 separate hubs. The exceptional work that was done in 2023 and the results have fed into reserve work and releases, as well as activities at the moment to upgrade mineral resources. So that'll continue through 2024-25. We have a quality team, both in Cloncurry and at Mount Oxide. So handling the quantum of work that's proposed, we feel we've got the teams in place to do that, and more importantly, the expertise in the team there to deliver from exploration into upgrading and development and de-risking the mineral resources that we're transitioning into mining in the areas.
You're on mute, Benny.
The next question we have is, can you go into more detail about the systematic approach or some of the exploration methods which True North is applying to its projects, which, as you mentioned, Marty, have historically received a significant amount of exploration from past owners?
I might take that one on, Marty, if you're
Okay. Yep. No worries.
Look, I think the key thing is that we're playing in big systems, and big systems have potential to host multiple zones of mineralization. But we're taking a systematic approach, and we're looking at the deposits and the zoning patterns within those deposits to identify where to go next. Where would that trend be? So, and we're applying innovative and integrated analysis to determine what tools and what pieces of information we need to collect to make that new step change discovery. And as Marty alluded to, there are lots of examples throughout Australia and the world where you're in a brownfields project, it's on care and maintenance, and just takes a new way to look at it and take that mineral systems approach and go, okay, we need to test down here, and that has brought about significant discoveries. Often those discoveries are actually better than the original mothballed mine.
Sure. So the next question, more of a macro type question. Do you have an outlook for copper, which you can share?
Yeah. Look, the best lead indicator for me is the offtake agreement that I just cut with Glencore. You know what I started, as many investors would understand, I started negotiating offtake agreements with 4 parties back in July last year, and that took a period of 7-8 months. But what that did illustrate to me is how quickly the market has changed, certainly for our off-takers. At the moment, our off-takers are saying there are spot TCRC prices, which are typically around about $80 US. So that's treatment charges to treat copper concentrate of around less than $20 US. In fact, some are actually quoting zero. That's spot treatment charges. So what that indicates to me is that deficit in supply is really starting to bite our firstly the smelters, and then that will obviously flow on to our consumers. We are also seeing more recently a change in the copper price. So the copper price prior to Chinese New Year holiday 2 weeks ago was around $8,100. It's now, just in the last 2 weeks, jumped up to well over around the $8,500 mark, which is over a 5% raise in 2 weeks. That all tends to support what I'm hearing from our off-takers on the ground. It's a very, very tough market for the supply of concentrates. It was quite fortuitous that I was negotiating an offtake agreement during that time, but what we're seeing now is a really tight on the supply side, which we believe will flow on to demand.
Sure, an interesting period ahead for the copper market for sure. Marty, you also just mentioned Glencore as well, and there was the recent announcement about that offtake agreement with Glencore.
Sure.
This would be a good opportunity just to wrap up what the partnership that you've established with Glencore, and how's that evolving? for True North?
Yeah, look, to be clear, Glencore don't really want to leave Mount Isa. In my mind, there is a lot of infrastructure, and you only have to look at the Glencore annual resources and reserves statement, particularly the Mount Isa zinc project. It shows the amount of resources, copper resources at Mount Isa. Nevertheless, we're seeing Glencore change in their model. Their model was owning and running the mines and owning everything in production to really going from that model to a more working with multiple parties and it capitalizing on the infrastructure they have. If my personal opinion is, if the copper price hits 9,500, which everyone is saying that it will, I think you'll see probably a reverse of that decision by Glencore, because there is a significant amount of copper still left in the Mount Isa system. But maybe the business model might change, where they will look to other parties to mine it for them.
Okay, and the next question is, in terms of your 2024 exploration program, what is your expected spend on this program, or what have you budgeted for this program in 2024?
So certainly the spend is well, look, it's tiered to what we are generating out of our mines at Cloncurry. Certainly our first wave of work is, like Daryl has said, IP and geophys, and that's been in a budgeted and ready to go. In terms of drill bit, our first target is drilling at Cloncurry. That's access, all our, access, and we can, easy to get to. Our spend is really our budget is mainly around is target on free cash flow generated out of the project. The budget is being finalised by Peter at the moment, but in the order of between $2 or $3 million in the first sort of 6 months of production.
Okay, thanks for that answer. And True North comes across as being very, very proud of its presence in North Queensland. Can you just explain some of the aspirations and what the company is trying to build in terms of its presence in that part of the country?
I think in essence, Ben, it's all about the Fosterville effect, right? It's all, there's this connotation that Cloncurry is tough. It's small, it's scratchy, but a lot of those small, high-grade copper scratches that were mined back in the 80s have had no systematic exploration undertaken to them. And Vero is an example to that. What happens when you actually undertake systematic exploration on such a project? You get something very, very special. We feel Cloncurry and our Great Australian target is one of those indeed scenarios, and we're I guess looking forward to being an active player, not only in terms of generating cash to fund our development in Northern Australia, but not only to grow the region in general.
Brilliant. Okay, so that wraps up the Q&A session. Just give it 2 seconds to see if any more come in. That looks like it's going to be it. So if we wrap it up there, just any closing remarks from yourself, Marty, or Peter and Daryl as well about the upcoming exploration program and what's in front of the company.
From the outset, thanks, Benny, and thanks so much for organising. From the outset, guys, and I appreciate how long this has taken. From the outset, we came to the market to be a cash-generative developer of in a Tier 1 Mount Isa inlier area. The man next to me, Peter Brown, is a demonstrated performer. He knows how to build and operate profitable mines. Daryl is one of the most amazing geologists very, very technical, and he has the horsepower. He and his team have the horsepower to deliver some really exciting exploration success in the coming year. I really appreciate everyone's time today and support, and look forward to keeping you guys fully informed in the months to come. Thanks very much, Ben.
Thanks, Marty. Thanks, Peter. And thanks, Daryl. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today for this webinar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See you later.